Welcome to Above the Garage.
Hi, friends. Welcome to our discussion of Season 1, Episode 3 of The Crowded Room. Let's do our round of introductions and dive in.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
Hi, I'm Kimberly.
And I'm Kate. So this episode is entitled Murder. It was written by Akiva Goldsman and directed by Brady Corbett, or Corbet. Sorry for butchering, as always. Just for clarification, I haven't watched the episodes beyond this yet. Even though we have them, I'm going to watch as we record the podcast because there's so many mysteries involved here. So
yeah, I don't want to get too ahead of myself either.
Yeah. So the episode opens with Rya telling the detective that she went to Danny's house, which he does not like, and she found the book of his paintings in the fire. When she shows it to him, he identifies Ariana as the girl from Rockefeller Center, and the detective wants to know if she thinks they are all victims. There are pictures of Johnny, Mike, Annabelle. Okay, so at this point, I'm wondering if Ariana was the woman that was shot in the leg and not the shooter at all. Because we find out the man that was shot was his dad, and obviously we're starting to heavily doubt his reality with the help of Rya's questioning at this point.
Oh, that's right. He says, if the description is accurate, that's the girl from Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
So when he said that, I was assuming he was talking about Ariana, who they've identified as the shooter.
Yeah.
But I guess my question was when I saw that, so however it's interpreted, whose description? Because if is the description coming from Danny, or was there another witness that described her?
I reckon there'd probably be another witness, right? There were quite a few people around. They probably got maybe a few people.
Yeah, but he didn't specify, so I'm curious about who the description comes from.
I feel like there's a shot later in the episode where you see her not in Danny's face, but actually standing behind his dad, which is odd.
She was, yeah.
That's, I think, when I perhaps had this theory, but.
Right. I don't know that they've filled in that blank, or maybe we're supposed to assume, but I'm just curious at this point, if their information about Ariane and Yitzhak originally came from Danny, like in his initial statement about what happened. So the description that is he the chief, like this law enforcement? Is he I
think he's a detective.
Detective. Yeah. I wasn't sure how to refer to him.
His name is Matty Dunn per IMDb.
He works at the police station.
Yes, he's someone from the police.
Why are they also in a home?
It looked like she went over to his place. Yeah, that was strange.
Yeah, I would have expected them to be at the police station, but they were not.
Good question. I also wanted to say that I love the dialogue in this show. I noted it too later on with Ari and Danny, but when Rya's talking to him about going to the house and he has her specify and she says went into, and he has her clarify, did anyone let you in?
Yeah.
No. No, but it was unlocked is what she says. Does that count? And he says, no, that's breaking and entering. And she just says, oops.
I also like that. Yeah. The into.
And the chief or detective, whoever he is still really wants Danny to be a serial killer. So he's jumping to the conclusion that these drawings are of his victims, which I don't know why that's a natural conclusion, but he's like, I mean, why couldn't they just be portraits?
Yeah, that's a big jump. Right.
I mean, some of those pictures are of his mother, and I think there's even one in there of Annabelle. I mean, it seems like...
Does he have any bodies? No. He just has two people that were shot.
He's got no evidence to actually say that Danny has even killed anyone, because nobody died at Rockefeller Center.
No. Got shot in the arm and got shot in the leg.
But this guy really wants Danny to be a serial killer. It's it's almost like he really wants to find a serial killer, and he thinks this is his chance to find a serial killer.
Because he said, do you think we caught one? And then what the fuck, dude?
And this is just one of those things that it bothers me so much, because it happens in real life where law enforcement just decides who they want to be guilty, and they build a case around them, whether or not it's true or not. And then they look for evidence to fit their own narrative. They don't actually look for the evidence to point to the truth. And it's just really frustrating. So it's, I see that being represented here.
Yeah, it's such a stretch here that it's even more shocking, because again, he has no evidence to lead you to believe he's a serial killer whatsoever, right?
None. And this is literally just a book of portraits, beautiful portraits. He's artistic.
Right.
So why does that mean he's a killer? It's crazy.
Unlike when we did Your Honor and they were actually pictures of all the crimes.
I guess it would be it is kind of interesting maybe for them if they realized like he was trying to burn it. Like what was the point of that? If it was literally just his drawings, why is he trying to burn it in a fire?
That's fair.
That is interesting, but they didn't really mention that as I recall.
No.
But you're right. That detail is interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting connection that even he didn't make.
Yeah. All right. Back at the diner, Ariana's giving Danny shit for drinking a Coke before 8 in the morning, which isn't cool because I do that sometimes.
I thought it was a weird thing to say, honestly.
Yeah.
She treated having a Coke as though he was offering her a beer. And he said so, and I agreed. I was like, what difference does it make? It's caffeine.
I have gotten shit from people, though, in my life about it. So it is a thing people notice and find odd. But they shouldn't. Rya finally gives us a little timeline assistance and establishes that this diner breakfast is about a week before the shooting. And Danny realizes to himself that if they hadn't gone out that morning, none of this would have ever happened. And then we see Ariana telling him about Jerome and how she pushes people away when they get too close. She feels like she's trapped in a metal box and it's getting smaller. And if she doesn't get out, she'll die. It only happens when she really likes someone, so casual sex is fine. So that's good news. I think she even says that. And he pushes again. What happened to you as a kid? And she points out it's pretty obvious. It was a friend of her dad's, would come into her room at night, which is just so fucking sad and awful. And this time Danny says, I get it, in a different way, like he'd experienced the same thing almost, but then he tells her it was his brother and one day he just couldn't take it anymore. Ariana confides that she can never not think of the man that raped her. She always feels him on top of her. So she's always running, but she can never run far enough. And here's the important line to Danny. I would do anything to make him disappear.
Mm-hmm. I mean, my heart just was breaking for her. I wanted to cry.
Oh my God.
Listening to her talk about this.
Not just that it happened, but that she's said like he's ever present. You know,
Yeah.
She can't compartmentalize. She can't move.
Even when she says the thing about the box and he's trapped inside with her, just she can't escape. Because you would almost think that the box would be like where she buries herself to
her escape, right?
Protect herself or to escape. But no, he's always with her, even when she's trying to hide. And that's just devastating. And it's just the honest to God truth of how victims have to carry on and live. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's probably the most like heartbreaking description that I've ever heard of it, you know? And it makes it like it fully makes me understand wanting to kill him if that would relieve that, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I also think he deserves it if he was raping a child night after night.
I know.
But yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah. And it's also someone who's, at least because what's interesting is this isn't someone who's so far in her distant past that it's not accessible to retaliate against. And that's where this like plan of action like starts to build towards, is like, this is like still a real predator to her who's still out there. And she would feel safer if he just didn't exist in the world anymore, which I can totally understand.
She doesn't tell us though that she sees him, right? Like,
no, she didn't say that.
So that part's kind of not discussed, but then like later on it seems like he is someone, you know, she knows where he goes after work or whatever. So
exactly, like she still knew how to track him down.
Right.
So it's very interesting. But it's also revealed that same thing happened to Danny's brother. And this seems to indicate, because he's indicated the loss of Adam, that he had a brother, no longer has a brother. Mm-hmm. And this seems to indicate that it was suicide. Is that what you guys got?
That's what it sounded like, yeah.
Yeah. This was just a devastating discussion all around, but you learn a lot.
Yeah. And in the next scene, like we see with Ryan, the interrogation, it's kind of obvious that he's trying to help in the way that he couldn't with his brother. Like,
absolutely.
Before something happens.
Yes. He talks about having a second chance.
Have you guys gotten the impression from her? It almost seemed like she was blaming him for what happened to Adam. Did you get that impression or no?
We're talking about Rya.
Yeah, at some point.
Yes. It's interesting to me that Rya does seem to include Adam in the list of people who have seemed to have disappeared without knowing what happened to them. Because at the end of the first episode, she says, "Where did they all go?" So yeah, I'm not sure I totally know what she's trying to get at with talking about Adam. She keeps wanting him to talk about Adam. He doesn't want to. Yeah. And I can understand it if it's a trauma that he doesn't want to revisit. But why would she wonder about Adam if Adam was like his twin brother who died? I would think that would be like something she could verify.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like that's maybe what happened in that case,
Right.
like you said. That would be pretty cut and dry. So Danny asks Johnny to get him a meet with their weed supplier. Johnny's very visibly uneasy about it, but he agrees to meet him at the train at 3. When they get there, Angelo hasn't changed much. Shut the fuck up. What do you want? Sit down. And then Danny drops the ask, a gun. Johnny flips. Angelo is not much less shocked, but Angelo recovers and tells him it'll cost him way more than money, even more than the $350 Danny brought with him. He wants a blowjob. Danny negotiates down to a hand job, and as they walk out on the street, because apparently a construction shed is a safer place for sexual assault than his own home, Johnny tries to talk him out of it. He warns him one last time he does not want to get near Angelo in that way before Danny accuses him of jealousy, and Johnny fucks off. Danny keeps walking with Angelo into the shed, where Angelo goes back on his word and holds the gun to Danny's head, telling him to give him the blowjob. And I was sure he was going to have to do it right as Johnny comes out of nowhere and smashes Angelo's face with a 2x4.
Go, Johnny. Yeah, I was like so happy. I was like, whoa. Yeah, Johnny for the rescue.
Thank God for Johnny.
Johnny's a very good friend.
Yeah.
It was even worse than holding the gun to his head. He stuck the gun in Danny's mouth and lowered him down to the ground with the gun in his mouth. That scene was terrifying.
Ugh. Yeah, it was awful to watch.
I mean, really, really disturbing.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable to just sit there and watch that one.
And I agree. I had no idea how that was going to play out. I didn't know if it was really going to happen or if it was.
I really thought it was going to happen. I thought the camera was just going to stay on Angela's face as it happened. And so I was very surprised pleasantly when Johnny came out of nowhere.
So Johnny saves the day.
Again, he saved the day with the weed. This is a much bigger one. But even obviously there's a fear of retribution here that they're not experiencing though, I didn't get the impression that they were scared afterwards.
I mean, they should have been they were laughing. Maybe it's just
the high
nerves,
of
the nerves of what just happened as they're on the subway, laughing about it and joking about how he's oh, my nose, and but that dude he was already scary before you did that, and now he is going to be scary times 100.
Right.
But it goes back to what Johnny said about you don't want to
go near him in that way.
You don't want to go there with a guy like this.
Yeah. Did you guys think that Johnny had a relationship with him, a sexual relationship? I kind of think that maybe.
No.
I had a maybe thought about that too, because his dealings we hadn't seen them ever since the park.
Yeah.
So it's possible that there was something.
I think also when he came through the door, Angela said something like, "You miss me," or "Back so soon," and that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but in the context of Johnny's visible fear when Danny was just asking him for the meat, I don't know. There were just a lot of things that made me wonder.
There was something else Danny said too when Johnny was trying to talk him out of it. Is Danny turned to him and said, "Are you jealous?" Which is kind of an interesting thing to throw in Johnny's face too.
Yeah, he just seemed scared of the guy, which obviously he was scary anyway, but I don't know. I have a hard time picturing them having this long-term relationship. If he was that quick to ask Danny for a blowjob, that he wouldn't have done something similar with Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
But don't know if it's relevant either. Just something I thought about. Back at the old ghost house, Danny tells Ariana he got her a gift, and he shows her the gun. Swears to Rya it was not to use, it was just to make Ariana feel safer, knowing she had it if her rapist ever came back again. Ariana doesn't want it though. She gives it back to Danny, tells him to get rid of it, which he admits to Rya he didn't even attempt to do. When she tries to clarify what he's saying, she repeats the story a little differently. You assaulted someone to steal a gun that you had no intention of using, then you kept the gun until you used it to shoot someone. And he interjects on 2 counts. 1, it wasn't him. It was Johnny that assaulted Angelo. And 2, it also wasn't him that shot the guy at Rockefeller Center. But she calmly points out, can you see how it looks?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of wording that's of interest.
Very interesting. The overlap, especially those overlapping lines. You assaulted someone, Johnny assaulted someone. He's right on top of that. No, Johnny assaulted someone. Right. But the fact that, right after he tells that story is that she phrases it that way immediately was interesting to me. You assaulted someone.
Right.
And she could have been saying that a general you referring to both of them, but
Yeah, and you used it to shoot someone, and he's saying, she did.
mm-hmm.
The morning after the Angelo assault, Mike's waking Danny up at the house, reminding him he's got a date with Annabelle this morning that he doesn't remember making. Rya wonders if these forgotten memories happen often, and Danny's again, like, visibly annoyed with her over the line of questioning. But Annabelle does come over with a kite. Kites are funny. Have you guys actually flown kites?
When I was a kid, we did.
I think they're very hard to use, or at least the cheap ones.
Well, the wind has to be just right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very tricky process.
It's not one of my favorite parental activities.
I actually don't know if I've ever tried to. I think I've watched people do it though.
Yeah, some people are good at it. You go to the beach and there'll be like kites like super high in the sky, but
Yeah.
I'm not a kite fan.
The few times that I remember my dad taking my brother and I out to the park or whatever on a really windy day. And I do remember it being fun, like holding onto the line, and it's like you can feel that tension on the kite up in the wind. So it kind of like, I sort of agreed with Annabelle when he said, I'm not really a kite person. And she said, everyone's a kite person.
No, what you just described is not fun for me. Like once I actually successfully get it in the sky, and then I'm like, all right, now what? Like, how long do I have to hold it up here? Can I just go get in the water again? I'm not a kite person, it seems. But Annabelle kisses Danny, and he is convinced he is a kite person now. They're smoking marijuana, talking about college. For Danny, college just stopped being something that was going to happen. She tells him he's still good, and he daydreams about maybe going to college for art, becoming a famous artist, and then they fly the kite quite successfully and run home in the rain. Back home, he builds a fire, and Annabelle promptly shimmies out of her pants. En route to finding some liquor in the kitchen, she finds his notebook, his incredible drawings. He thinks he hears someone coming, so they race up to the room, make plans to go to the library tomorrow to look at art. It's sad when every time she tells him something nice, he responds with like an extremely vulnerable, really?
Yeah.
And she points that out to him. I kind of like this. She's like, you keep saying that.
Yeah, I keep feeling it, he said. I like that line too.
Yeah.
And then it looks like maybe he's finally going to get laid. She says she wants to shower first. It doesn't feel ingenuine, like she's trying to escape. But by the time she gets back, he's asleep. Silly Danny.
Oh, she really seems to like him a lot. Like at this stage when she's cuddling up to him in bed and stuff, and he's asleep, and like she seems really genuinely affectionate with him.
Right.
Yeah, that was cute until what happens next.
I know it doesn't last
for a
but
minute.
It was sweet for a moment.
Yeah.
And that seems like it's going to be the end of his story of that night. Seems like in his memory, they just went to sleep, but we know that's about to change when Ryan starts pushing him angrily. Come on, Danny, what happened in that house? And then there's glass breaking, glass being walked on, and it's Angelo. Oops. And he is not happy about getting cheated out of sexual assault or his freshly broken nose. Danny hides Annabelle in the closet, something Annabelle is obviously not thrilled about. Danny starts rambling. He's sorry. Angelo can have the gun back when someone covers his mouth and pulls him back into the darkness. The omnipresent Yitzhak, of course.
That was one of the flashes we saw in one of the previous episodes. So
Yeah.
those flashes obviously are coming to life.
Probably a good place to note that Yitzhak is like always gone when he wants him to be gone, and always there when he needs him.
Yeah. I was really surprised when he was there, actually. I was like, wait, he's like never home.
Well, the house seemed empty, right? Like when it was
Right.
just Danny and Annabelle, it seemed empty. And then all of a sudden, Yitzhak's there. And then later, like a little bit later, Ariana is there. So
Yeah. Because in another show, you would have expected him to show up during the Friday night party against the rules, or,
exactly.
Yeah.
When Danny's doing the things he told him not to do.
Yeah, but not in this show.
Did Danny empty the gun of the bullets like by accident, or did he do that on purpose?
What was that? Accident, I guess, because he was going to give it back to him, but he said oops.
Yeah, I was like,
he said oops or something at the time.
did he say oops? Okay, because I was like, if you did that on purpose, that's stupid. Like, keep the bullets in the gun so you can protect yourself.
Well, yeah, again, only because he's handing it over, it doesn't make any sense. But even then, I don't think it's sufficient.
Maybe he did it so that he couldn't shoot him.
That's what I mean. Yeah, if you're going to give him the gun, then he doesn't have any bullets. That helps you.
Yeah.
But they're right there on the floor, so.
You can totally just pick them up and like.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Pick them up, put them back in.
Right. And also, he probably has another gun that he brought. But I guess he didn't. What does he have? A bat, I think?
Yeah, he brought a bat.
Yeah.
Maybe the one that Johnny run off with the bat or did they drop it?
I thought Johnny had like a piece of wood.
Yeah.
Like it
Oh,
looked
right.
That is different, I think.
plywood almost or something.
Though that would have been appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Danny gets pulled back in the darkness, but Angela's found Annabelle and she's screaming and crying. So Yitzhak very calmly extends his hand and says, Danny, gun, now. And Danny acquiesces. He doesn't even pull it yet. He puts it in his waistband and then beats the shit out of Angela with his hands first, and then Angela's own bat that he brought, and then his hands again. Don't fuck with Yitzhak, y'all.
No.
And now Yitzhak pulls the gun. But he aims wide. Doesn't matter. Angela's pissed himself, and Yitzhak uses that as the final insult, yells at him to run. The same way Angela did to the kids in the pilot, actually. I remembered when he said that.
Yeah.
And he does. Annabelle freaks out and leaves. I would have given Angela a little more berth on the exit if I were Annabelle. She just basically follows him out.
Yeah. Good point.
That's true. I didn't think about that. Oh.
But Danny can't even focus on her because Yitzhak's kicking him out of the house. Furious, he brought a gun into the house and made him use it. Ariana briefly defends him. He did it for me, but is ultimately also pissed. Sorry doesn't keep a roof over my head.
I like the moment, like when Yitzhak has just like made Angelo pee himself and he runs out of the house, and then he turns to Annabelle in Danny's room and he's like, you're safe now. Like he was so calm about it. He's just like, you're safe now. Okay.
He says that, and then Danny comes in. And the funny thing that what you just said about Annabelle, like leaving immediately after Angela runs out, is she seems more scared of Danny in that moment than the guy who was just, just almost assaulting her.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, I mean, I know it played out again in the way that, someone swoops in and saves the day. But like, we knew something happened on this night because Rya was... She says, tell me what happened that night. So I was really afraid at first that something like Annabelle was going to be killed. I thought Angela was going to kill Annabelle or something or she was going to be a victim.
Yeah, me too.
Of like in the crossfire, sort of. Glad that didn't happen. But yeah, it was still a very violent occurrence that went down.
Yeah, I also am wondering what happens to Annabelle after this point, because I thought that might be it for her.
That was pretty terrifying. So I don't know if she'll go back, but
right.
It's really too bad. They were very cute for a moment.
Oh, yeah. But will Rya be like questioning Annabelle and stuff, like?
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. Next day, Danny's smoking outside, considering his limited options when his stepdad drives by and tells him to come home. His mom misses him. Inside, we learn Ariana's been granted a pass by Yitzhak. She's allowed to stay, but she couldn't convince him to let Danny stay. But her mind's actually on the gun and making her rapist go away. Maybe she could just scare him, make sure he never comes back. Nobody gets hurt, just scared. And so we talked about that, like kind of in the first episode, that sounded like a thing she would have told him going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then he says something interesting to Rya. The thing they never tell you is that when you're doing something crazy, it never feels crazy at the time. Rya asks if maybe the incident with Yitzhak maybe made him feel like he'd reached a limit, and he takes offense to her once again acting like he acted alone. She asks about the target, and he says Ariana told him he liked to go to OTB on Fridays after work. Doesn't that strike you as strange? She asks, which clearly it should. And then she asks who he was. And then another bomb drops, explains why he froze, exactly like he saw someone he knew and didn't expect, because he did. The person that he was there to shoot was Marlon, his stepfather. Rya's clearly trying to get through his brain with logic because he seems to fully believe his story of the version of events. And so it's difficult for her, but I think she's very good at making him talk through it, right? Well, doesn't that seem too much of a coincidence?
Mm-hmm.
She's asking, how could Ariana's rapist be Danny's father? That seems a bit too coincidental, doesn't it? How can that be? And then he jumps to the conclusion there that she wants him to realize it was a setup from the start, which in my opinion is clearly not where she was going, but she follows him.
I didn't think she was either. Yeah,
but I think that her strategy requires her to follow him on that jump,
Right.
And so she does. She asks, okay, well, if that was the case, why would that be? And he says it was obvious that they wanted him to go and find his father. I was like, what the fuck? How do you get from A to Q there?
No.
Usually I feel like he's been fairly logical in his answers. And
this ending was so confusing because he ends it on a plane. At what point between the events of this shooting and then being taken in.
Yeah.
When did this plane happen?
Well, to be fair, I talked about this in episode 1 a little bit because I said it didn't feel right that Yitzhak gave him the passport and the money and then he just wandered around the house for the day. Something felt wrong about that because it was like very urgent. Here, take the passport, take the money, go find your father, right? And then all of a sudden he's just wandering around the house until he gets arrested, and that just felt not right at the time. So
right. Yeah, I remember you questioning if it had followed, if it had immediately followed that he was arrested right after that happened.
I guess I kind of suspected that we were being misled by that.
And I think we were.
Timing, right. But I would never have guessed he got on a plane to go find his father in the middle.
Because even if it wasn't an immediate follow, it's like, it seems like a lot happened then.
Yeah.
Like he actually traveled somewhere and had another adventure in the middle of all this.
So how long until he gets arrested? He's back at the house when he gets arrested eventually, right?
Right. I think that was at the house.
Yeah, because he burned the...
Yeah. And one of you asked, is the father his stepfather or his biological father? I guess it's his biological father.
I guess now it's his biological father. But like you said just a minute ago, how do you get from A to Q? I liked how you put that, because it's like, how are these related?
Why? It came out of nowhere. Like we've never had a discussion about his biological father. And now he thinks that is the obvious reason that all of this, that they've framed all of this. They framed him for, it makes no sense. He just departed reality, like far.
So he's saying that they framed all of this so Yitzhak could give him the passport to go find his dad. That's
correct.
Right.
They have devoted their lives to making a very convoluted scheme so that they could then tell him to go find his dad, which they could have done without any of this.
Would that also include Ariana's story? Like, is the implication that she lied about that?
I have no idea. Yeah, I guess so. Yes. If it's all a setup, then yes. I mean, I don't know. It could be a version of the setup where no, the setup was just for him to kill her rapist because she didn't want to do it,
Could be.
Or it could be a full setup where all this is made up also that they can get him to go find his dad.
Very strange.
I don't know. It was really a departure from reality.
Maybe the next episode will make it more clear in retrospect. I don't know. I have a question for you guys, though. Before we saw this episode and the reveal at the end of this one with Danny's stepdad, had you guys suspected anybody in particular of being that person that we didn't see at the shooting who the target was?
I did think of it being his stepdad at some point during the watching of these episodes.
I did too.
There's nobody else we know really in this story that it practically could have been, his dad's abusive, his stepdad's abusive.
We already know him to be a villain from the first episode. And I think there was something about the back of him too, because you see the back of him that in my head, I was like, that could be his stepdad.
Yeah.
In the first episode, when he was going to pull the trigger, I actually did think it was someone he knew just because
he froze.
Like his eyes went massive and he was like, oh my God, like, whoa. But yeah, I didn't. I definitely didn't put 2 and 2 together.
That scene happens, I believe, before we meet his home life and his stepdad.
Yeah, right off the bat. Yeah, Tom Holland does a good job in that moment because, and we didn't discuss it and we should have, but it's very clear that it's not just freezing because he doesn't want to shoot somebody. Like you said, it's very clear. It's recognition of someone that he didn't expect to be there. So
yeah,
good work, Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's really phenomenal in this, by the way. I just want to say, like, he's really good. I love the scene at the I think it's the breakfast scene when Ariana is opening up to him. His reactions to just everything that she's saying and disclosing, and just the reactions on his face, the way he closes his eyes, it's just so he's so good. It's very still and it's very subtle, but it's so good. You can just feel the palpable disgust on her behalf of what she went through and what he can also relate to from his experience, and he's just awesome in this role.
Yeah
I think they definitely done an amazing job casting. Like, I would shout out everyone basically, and Dasha Lane, who plays Ariana, I thought was especially good in previous episode when she was highlighted more in the bar and things like that.
At the club. Yeah,
since the beginning. She's very, very good.
She's great. Yeah.
All right, I think that's a wrap on our discussion of season 1 episode 3 of The Crowded Room. Come back on Friday for our discussion of episode 4. Thanks for listening. Bye.